What's good, guys? What's up, fellas?
Hope everybody's having a good week. Get Mac in here in just a second. That shit's kind of weird. Like sometimes when you click them in, the first time it works, and then sometimes it fucking doesn't. Oh damn! Mac, send me a situation. There we go. What's up, dog?
What up, what up, what up, y'all?
What's going on, man?
Ain't shit, man. Chilling. How y'all doing today?
Hey, another day above ground. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm doing good, man. You know, in the garden, you can't complain. You know, it's always zen in the garden.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
Always 70 in the garden.
What up, everybody that joined in, man? I appreciate everybody from joining in, man. Appreciate that. We always gonna bring the dank. What up, Farmer?
What's up, guys? So yeah, I think tonight we'll do a topic that we've kind of batted around a little bit. I've talked about doing a few times. I think it's something anybody can kind of listen to, whether you're a beginner or a later grower. But just kind of tips for getting started, tips for starting to grow, tips for if it's your first grow, your first situation, where to start. So let me ask you a quick question. What do you think the most important thing when it comes to growing weed is?
For a newbie grower,
For anybody.
My thing has always been, like I said last week, learn what your mistake is and fix that, and continue to get better on each and every grow.
Right. Dialing it in. You know, if I had to pick one thing, and I had to say the most important thing to start is probably genetics. And the reason I say this, everybody's going to start with something, right? And how many times are you willing to put in time, effort, patience, and not get weed to smoke, right? So the reality is, I don't know, what was the first genetics you ever grew? What was the first thing you ever grew?
First genetics I ever grew, I was gifted some seeds at a Walmart. Cherry pie and pineapple express.
See, that's awesome. That's an awesome first grow. But genetically, my first grow was shit out of a bag. Because that was all the seeds out of a fucking bag. Like, let's be honest. So many people, that's where they fucking start.
What you know? Start growing.
What was the first strain that I grew?
What year?
99, 2000, somewhere in there. That was so like there were a couple of that's kind of not accurate. There were a couple of failures. There were a couple of times, like most people, where I didn't get anything. Something failed, something went wrong. I kind of told a story on another podcast that I did, but it's worth telling here. Like, I didn't get to smoke my first real plant.
Me either.
The first real plant that I grew, somebody stole.
Oh,
and it was a friend. It was a friend of a friend.
God.
It was some bag seed that I had. I ran in the middle of the woods in just a spot, like one little sunny area in the woods, and I ran one. It was literally a 2-foot tall cola on top. And it was the most, probably today, sitting here right now, 40 years later, was probably one of the biggest buds I ever grew.
Yeah.
And I never got to smoke it. It got hung up. A friend of a friend came over for something. Like, I didn't know that he was going to be at the house, and I guess the homie had let him in the house. and he happened to walk by it and helped himself and was just like, peace be the journey.
I won't go into detail, especially that this is recorded live. Let's just say that I had a very similar experience with my first grow, and it was stolen by someone I knew. And yeah, man, that was heartbreaking, man. I still tell that story a lot sometimes to the people that actually know the story, man. That's weird that you say so. But yeah, man, so we got that out the way. First things first, you want to start with genetics, and you want to understand that you're going to make mistakes and correct those mistakes, man. So for all the new growers out there, or growers period, genetics is where it's at, and learn from your mistakes.
Right.
If you do everything right, it's the genetics.
We live in a world that's a little different for everybody depending on where you live. If you're getting started and you live in a state where weed is absolutely legal, go to your local hydroponic store, talk to those guys, ask them questions, because they're going to be able to tell you. Most of the grow shop people in Colorado that I've ever dealt with were some of the most knowledgeable people as far as the ins and outs of growing weed, which was honestly impressive, because what happens is a lot of the growers in Colorado that are worth a shit get tired of the grow situation, take a job in a grow, selling grow supplies, and they're usually ex-growers. They're usually, or growers, who just grow on the side. If you don't live in a state like that, your best bet is Amazon. I'm gonna be just frank with you. Like, get used to Amazon. Most people know a forum, an online group. Go get Jorge Cervantes' Grow Bible. This is funny because this was the first book that I ever had on weed. I put it next to the toilet. Every time you're in the toilet, read something. You don't even have to read it cover to cover. Just open it up and read something. Before you know it, you're going to start seeing things on your plant, and it's going to be second nature because you trained yourself while you were pooping.
Right. I know it's a little off topic, but another thing I want to point out too that I think is very important is know your local state laws. Even if you're in a green state, that you can cultivate cannabis. Know your local state laws, and yeah, and that's all I'm saying. Is know the laws. I can't tell you to follow them or not, because we all probably go from here to there sometimes without doing the speed limit, but know the law. It's important to know the law.
Absolutely. 110%. 110%. So then I would say your next big question, right? You've got genetics, you've got something in mind in the back of your head you want to grow, right? What do you do? How do you germinate those seeds? What do you do with the seeds that you've acquired to begin your journey? What do you do?
What do I do? So I've tried multiple methods, and actually I've tried different methods on my last 2 grows. So my last grow, I used paper napkin, the wet paper napkin method with the Ziploc bag. I think that's where everyone probably started, right? Then I started letting the seeds soak for 48 hours, and I've tried that. I've tried scarification. Yeah. I don't know, man. I've tried it all, bro. So this last go round, what I did is I just wanted to see who was the strongest, and I didn't soak them. I didn't put them in a wet paper napkin. I just put them right into a little cube and see who go. Yeah,
absolutely. Hey, man, there's validity to that, for the simple fact that whatever's going to make it out is going to usually be the strongest. So you're gonna have. Real quick, you're going to separate the best from the worst.
I agree.
In that, if you've got enough seeds and you don't really care, then that's a beautiful strategy. The problem is that most people don't have 200 seeds for their first grow. Correct. So if you're running 10 seeds and you care about every one of them popping, what's your method?
All right. So if I am a new grower, I got $100 seeds that I didn't have. I'm gonna do the paper.
Pick them up in a cannabis cup.
I'm gonna go paper towel.
I'm sorry.
Huh?
Sorry about that.
No worries. So I'm gonna go wet paper towel in a warm place method, warm dark place method. If I'm not trying to hunt and see who's the strongest, and I want high success rates of germination, I'm gonna go wet paper towel, plate, warm, and put it on top of my refrigerator method. Honestly.
Are you a fan of the bag horizontally or vertically?
That's something new, man. Let's talk about it. I've never heard
So
of it.
this is something that I've seen in the last. I mean, I probably heard about it a few years back, but I've seen it more and more. You know, in the last few years, is that once you go into a paper bag or into a paper towel in a Ziploc, some people staple them or use like a magnet and put it on the fridge so that it keeps it upright and the seedling grows in its natural vertical position from day one.
Wow. Wow. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Right? So me personally, right? And this is just from years of doing everything from screwing it up. I mean, I've had whole flats of seeds just get trashed. You know, I've made a lot of mistakes. So if I'm going for high germination, I'm going 48 hours soak. So what I do is just plain tap water in the cup, 24 hours. Doesn't need to do anything else. After 24 hours, I tap them with my finger. They all sink to the bottom. For the most part, if they're healthy seeds, they should sink straight to the bottom, 24 more hours. After that,
Yep.
I'm going into paper towels and a Ziploc. If they're older seeds or something that I'm questionable about. If at that point I can already see them busted through the seeds, they're going straight into rooter cubes. They're ready to go, 100%.
Right.
Because usually by that point, they're going to take off.
So I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you really just answered it for me, honestly. But so some people prefer to let the taproot get however many long, inches they do. Some people do 3-4 inches, Some people do as soon as it cracks, it's ready to go. In my opinion, I'm with you. If I see life, then I put it in the soil. And again,
Yep.
Nature's gonna take its course at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I think long story short, I don't think any of those are really wrong answers. I think that getting them into what's going to be a more natural environment as soon as possible is a good thing.
Yeah.
The other thing we got to talk about warm bags. Like once you take your bag, it's in a Ziploc bag. When it's in a warm place, you're going to start to encourage bacterial growth. So the first handful of seeds that pop are probably going to be good to go, no problem. They're going to take off. Anything that kind of lingers or that isn't really, really healthy is going to have a little bit harder time in that environment to get out of the shell before the bacteria starts to grow really bad. And by that point, you start to see almost like a fungus-looking stuff growing on the seeds that aren't going to pop, right? And trying to keep that kind of to a minimum while getting the good ones out of the way, for me, is always a great idea, right?
Most definitely.
So next thing, right? We've got our seeds. Our seeds are popped. We got them in some little rooter cubes, right?
Mm-hmm.
1 gallon. Now we got to make another decision. Soil? Soilless. Soilless, yeah. Well, so here's the funny thing. Like, being old school, in the late 90s, it was perlite and vermiculite.
Right.
And it was literally 2-liter bottles of perlite and vermiculite with rock wool.
Yep.
Then we got to cocoa. Cocoa didn't really become a thing on my radar until 2010-ish as like a new medium that I had access to. And once I did, changed everything for me. I was 18 years super soil, modified subcool soil recipe, largely things that I could pick up easily or get my hands on. Simple, simple. And I'll be honest with you, I think for a lot of people's first grows, if you have access to a grow shop, you can get something like Ocean Forest, or you can get, any number of organic soils that are pretty much decent out of the bottle to get out of the bag to get started. It doesn't hurt, man.
Right.
Your first grow does not have to be some blown out situation. I tell everybody else, at this point, you've either modified your room to be a situation where you can grow, or you bought a tent, which for most growers, I'm going to tell you, is probably your easiest option. Once again, Amazon.
Let's be real here. This is my first run out of the tents. I'm gonna keep it all the way 1,000. So congratulations on the upgrade, and I appreciate and shout out to my team. Get me right. So yeah, this month, so definitely, I've grown in many tents, and the thing about the tent is that actually is a benefit. Is it's smaller environment to control. And it's easier to control. Now, to a newbie grower, and I'm just speaking from me, as a new grower, I didn't have the expenses to go all out and buy the AC Infinity control fans and all of the bells and whistles that I do now.
You don't have to spend a ton of money.
You don't.
You don't have to.
Well, let's just be honest, right?
It is going to cost you money to get started.
It's going to cost you money to get started, but if you're talking about growing top tier, the conditions have to be right. Let's just be honest.
The conditions need to be right. You're absolutely right. But in saying that, you don't have to buy the most expensive lamp that is on the shelf. You don't have to go to the grocery store and have them sell you on the most expensive blown out hydro situation if you've never grown one plant. Once you've grown a handful of plants, then you can start to look at what your other options are as far as getting creative with it. Sure. There's a million ways to grow weed. The only ways that are wrong are the ways that don't produce dank weed.
For sure.
That's it. It doesn't mean it's wrong because it's different. There's a million ways out there to give it a go.
And that's what I really love about cultivation, man. Cultivation can become as personal as you want it. You know what I mean? And you can dial in your environment the way you see fit or the way you're able to. And that's what's so good about this wonderful plant with cannabis is it's so resilient. And that's one thing for newbie growers, man. Hey, don't be afraid to mess up and test your plant or just run the plant, grow it, put it in the soil because cannabis is very resilient. You can almost send it to the brink and it'll bounce back for you if you just, again, like I say, learn from your mistakes. You need a perfect environment, though. HVAC is key. Yeah, man.
The next thing I was going to say, so Mac brought it up. It's a beautiful point, right? So then air control, right? Environmentals. You need to be able to keep your grow at mid-70s with a relative humidity. You know, if you're starting to get up over 50, 60% humidity in your grow, you're probably going to end up with problems eventually. In veg, you can take a little bit more, but to be honest with you, depending on what kind of strains you're growing, when you start to get over 50% humidity in your grow, you're looking at problems. Bugs,
for sure.
You know, bugs love warm, wet grows. Mold loves warm, wet grows. So HVAC, airflow, most people don't really understand what HVAC is because they've never worked in construction, but that's essentially how you move air, right? It's just keeping your room cool, keeping your air moving. Those two things are going to be clutch, and it's something, you know, once again, when people were only doing it in closets, you didn't really know that.
Yeah.
Right now, with a modern tent, you can easily plug a couple inline fans, a couple of mounted fans, and you're good to go, you know, to be honest. As long as you can move that air and you can keep the air around your plants moving, you're going to avoid a lot of bullshitting problems.
So it kind of go back to what Zone Valley said. He said back to what I said. The store will rip a new grower off. Some stores will play dirty with new growers, but that goes back to what Terpene was saying, where it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg to get started and get you a good grow going.
I'll tell everybody, don't go straight to the grow shop first. Make sure you've done at least a little research. Get you a book. Like I said, the Grow By Automation Vante's Grow Bible. Get on a forum. Follow some people on Instagram. Like, get a good idea of what you're looking for before you get to the grow shop.
Yeah.
And once again, Amazon. Go to Amazon and Google, you know, and look and see what the average price is for a lot of this stuff. Like, that's something we didn't have 20-some years ago.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Take advantage of Amazon, man, and the plethora of choices that you guys have now, because back when I started growing, we didn't have choices like that, and we kind of did have to go to the grocery store, and it sucked, you know. So yeah, take advantage of Amazon. Amazon has some good deals, man, for sure. I
And at the
remember.
very least, then you know what you're going into with the grow shop. Because if you can go into the grow shop and you know you need an inline fan, and an inline fan costs $50 to $70, and you get there and they're like, "Look, it's $200 for this fan," you know
Why?
somebody's pulling the wool over you real easy, you
Right,
know?
right. That's definitely true.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I always tell people. The other thing that you want to spend money on, depending on the size of your grow, is power and electricity and HVAC. Those are the two things. Like, pay for them to be done with plumbing, pay for them to be done right, and then spend your money, you know, conservatively on other stuff. If you're just plugging in an LED, these days you can have an LED in your corner for cheap.
Facts.
Cheap.
Facts.
You know, I mean, the cost of the LED is more than what it's going to cost you in power month to month. That wasn't another thing that for years and years and years, it was all huge lamps and huge bulbs. And now you can get an LED that's just as efficient and does just as good a job for the average startup grower. You don't have to have an extra huge power bill.
Hey, I
You
wanna
know,
I want to say something that someone said in the comments. So they said make sure that you ship in when you're purchasing on Amazon, click ship in Amazon box, and I guess that's the show, you know, to get some type of conservative when you know your item is being sent to your house. So that's a good point. Make sure you click ship in Amazon box. I gotta point that out. That's a good point.
yeah. So, I mean, at that point, you know, we kind of went on soil. You know, organics is kind of an easy route for most growers, right? And then
Organic.
either an actual soil or an organic soil, an organic fertilizer with soil.
Uh,
I think that's what a lot of people start with, right?
a good. No, I think most people start with bottle newts these days. At least I
No, right,
did.
right. But as far as
Yeah.
what you're growing in,
What I'm. Oh, wait.
like
What's
the
the
actual
question?
soil. So you have two different options, right? So most of your soil
Oh,
is
yeah,
something that's peat
yeah,
based,
yeah.
right?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And that's completely different than cocoa because
Correct,
cocoa is essentially a soilless
correct.
mix. So if we're going bottle, right, 100%, then we go with an organic option or we go with a soilless option, correct? Cocoa.
Correct. It
We'll
just
call it cocoa.
depends on which medium you choose to grow in. Yeah,
Right,
it
right,
just depends on
right, right.
which way you're, which way
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
newbie grower grows.
Right. And most people will probably go the bottle route.
HO, yeah, that's the start.
The other
Down
or
and
the other option is soil, some sort of soil option with mixed in nutrients, which I mentioned before was a super
yeah,
soil is what we used to call it for years
yeah,
and years and years. But it's essentially bone meal, blood meal, various dead things, various rotted things, depending which route you go organically, right?
hmm
And then you've got
correct, correct.
the other option, which is synthetics, which is, you know, cocoa, everything's
I've done both.
measurable,
So
everything's, go ahead.
when I was in Spain, when I was in Spain and growing, I didn't have access to a lot of American-based products because of the location I lived in Spain. So I had to go organically. You know, I had fig trees and lemon trees and orange trees growing in my backyard. So I would just compost the stuff that fell on the ground, and
Yeah.
create my mycorrhiza with the milk that with the milk I buy from from the store and stuff like that, creating labs and stuff. And I'm a really big fan of bacteria. I love the bacteria in the soil. And I also learned this year that bacteria not only grows in soil, but if you're growing in cocoa too, you can get bacteria to grow in cocoa.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So essentially what he's saying is that bacterial inoculants turn your soil into something that's living, that looks more like soil that you get in the middle of the woods where you might
correct.
grow wheat. right?
Correct.
And that soil is biologically activated with bacteria, fungi, various little creepy crawly situations that all make up a living soil of some sort,
Hey,
right?
that's a whole nother topic, man. I end up diving deep into microbes, and I know you've heard of the book Teaming with Microbes and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a whole world even under the soil. And that's another thing I want to tell newbie growers too, especially if you choose to grow organically, feed the soil, not the plant. Because what's happening underneath the soil, all the mycorrhiza and the bacteria and stuff are eating each other, eating stuff, eating matter in the soil, turning it into food for the plant. And it makes it readily available into a form in which the roots can uptake. You know, it's really nice, man. I definitely advise y'all to read into dive into microbes. That's a great topic for newbie growers, especially when you don't even have a base. Let your first base be learn how to take care of the medium or the soil or whatever you want to call it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, for sure. Bacteria, I mean, once again, and that's something you can get into at the beginning. That's something you can find and get into as you go.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the first thing you need to go buy, but to be fair, it's something that, like, as you go along,
Right. I would definitely say you can buy the book.
Right, the difference between good weed and the difference between great weed can often be the little things you don't see in the soil.
Yeah, for sure, man. You got to make the plant exactly what I call it, zen. You got to give the plant no problems. And the plant's already gonna come with problems, just like a human body. You know what I mean? Like if you take care of your body, you know, and shit doesn't happen, you can live a long time, right? Same with a plant. You give it everything it needs and give it a zen environment, it'll produce for you. It'll give back to you every time.
So have you ever run cocoa before?
I have. I just came out of cocoa, man. The thing with cocoa for me is I feel like to run cocoa efficiently, you have to run a high fertigation system. And I didn't have the time for it because how much I worked. So I reverted back to soil where I can water maybe twice, 3 times a day. So, but yeah. Cocoa is amazing because it's inerrant. It doesn't have anything. So whatever you feed cocoa is what's you feeding the plant. So I like that about cocoa. Soil tends to hold on to things, and if you're running a salt-based product, you got to be careful with soil because you can overflood the medium and kill all the bacteria because the medium is too salty. You might be alkaline or you know, whatever. So that's but cocoa.
Once again, then we kind of get into, once we've talked about what you put your plant in physically, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's in the cup, what's in the pot. The next question is, like we said, nutrients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the big easy option is liquid bottled nutrients. And you kind of have, like we said, 2 options there. You have something that's more organic, right?
Yeah.
Whatever option you can find or put your hands on.
For sure.
You can usually Google these sort of things once again. There's 100 different brands, and that's a whole different conversation one day, is just the bottle aisle at your local grow shop.
Right.
I mean, there's, that's an hour there.
Turn them around, compare them, let's see what they all say.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's generally 2 things there, right? There's 2 types. There's mostly organic stuff and stuff that's synthetic, quote-unquote synthetic salt. With the salt stuff, man, you need to have immediately, and this is how a lot of people these days are getting into growing, you need to have a meter that does ppm and pH, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing soil, to be honest with you, you could get by on some pH strips and just some pH up and pH down, of whatever your choice is organically. There's hundreds of different ways you can do that. But making sure that the pH of your soil is correct is going to be one of the things that most new growers are going to miss and are not going to nail the first time. For soil, you're looking at 6.61. For cocoa, you're looking at 5.8 is what the pH you want to be at. And that's really important depending on what nutrient you're using and make sure that's in line because the plant isn't going to uptake the nutrients correctly if the pH of the soil is completely off.
Wow. You run your soil at 5.8?
No, I run soil at 6.1.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow.
6.1, 6.2. I run cocoa. I would run cocoa at 5.8. Yeah, 5.8, 5.9.
Yeah. So I ask you a question. Do you check EC or are you just a PPM guy?
EC
Same
only
thing, though.
matters. EC, electrical conductivity in parts per million, is essentially the measure of salt in your solution, right? So the only time that's necessary is if you're growing with a salt-based nutrient. So if you're running something that's an organic-based nutrient, it's going to put out like 100 ppm because there's no salt. There's nothing that's not how it's measured.
Right.
So with anything salt-based, that's why you need a meter, because then you can measure your feed all the way through. And you can measure exactly when something goes wrong in cocoa. It's super easy to measure. It's something that you literally fix a proper strength watering, water till you have runoff, measure the runoff. If there's a difference between those two, something's off.
Correct.
It's the easiest thing to measure. With soil, there's no measurement. So if soil, like you said, when something goes wrong, anything in soil, if something goes wrong, the problem is harder to diagnose, and it's also harder to fix. It's not always something that you're just going to, we'll just mix a new, it's not how that works.
And that goes to the reason I say with cocoa, it's inerrant. It doesn't hold on to salts or.
Yeah, right. It's inert. There's nothing there. It's like a sponge, and then when you squeeze it, everything's gone. And but that doesn't mean you can't use too much and then lock up to the point where, like you said, you still have an imbalance. Correct. But it's just easier to measure when that happens.
You can flush it easier too. You can flush it way easier.
The solution is a lot easier.
Yeah.
With soil, a lot of times your solution is just weight.
Yeah.
It's usually time. A lot of times you have to kind of wait for things to kind of work their way out. When I say soil, I want to be clear. Soil usually means something peat-based, and which is most gardening soils all the way to like anything organic. Sometimes you mix maybe 10, 15% cocoa, but it's mostly peat-based, a lot of soils. With cocoa, it's literally the husks of coconuts. That's exactly what it is. It's the husk of coconut that's been shredded. And that's what you grow in. Yeah. And it's like you said, for some people, it's a little tougher because it's a little more sciencey, it's a little more measure, it's a little more, there's a little bit more to it than I just put my plants in the corner under my light and I water them. That's usually going to be something soil related. If you don't have a lot of time to put into it, maybe it's not your thing. But if something goes wrong, inherently, it's a little easier to fix the problem if you're in something like that.
Correct. I agree.
So what kind of strains do you think are easier for a new grower to grow? Because once again, let's say I did this, right? I just got home from the cup, spent $350 on these seeds, $200 on this pack of seeds. It's the hype new thing, right?
I gotta be honest with you, bro. I don't really know about that, but what I do know that I gave a newbie grower your terp bomb, and he grew it superb. So I don't think you got to spend $200 on a.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you've invested.
Indo Rich on that, man. Indo Rich grew the hell out that terp bomb, man. He brought me a sample the other day, and it was very nice. I want to say shout out to Indo Rich on that. I let Indo Rich speak to Terp. Me and Terp was playing Modern Warfare, and I let my homie speak to him on the Call of Duty, and he told him, yeah, I grew your strain for the first time. Was my first ever grow, and he killed it. So I would recommend Terp Fiend gear or Bloom Boy Genetics gear on your first grow.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. terpenes.com. Go get some seeds. Hit up Mac Blunts. Mac Blunts got some nasty caramel donut situation that is now apparently all I'm hearing about from my better half.
You gotta ask Virginia. Virginia knows. Virginia knows.
I'm just saying, the homie's got some dank. If you haven't got it yet, go get some for sure. For sure. Yep. But generally speaking, like as far as actual strains, is it better for somebody who's new to go get the hot shit that they've just heard about at the cup or heard about in high times, or is it better for them to go get something that, you know, is somebody they can trust, somebody they can communicate with, and somebody they can, you know, have a relationship with, which is a little bit better for a new grower.
With me, how I feel at a new grower, go get what you want and grow it. That's just at the end of the day, get whatever you get, just have fun and enjoy growing it. I can't speak for anybody else. What I done is I went and got terpene, and I went and got bakery, and I went and got Tino's. That's what I did. But go get what you want and grow it. Get some of my gear and grow it. Just
There
put
you go.
the seed in the soil.
Yeah, right.
You know, put the seed in the soil.
Yeah, right. And I mean, regardless of where you're going to pick up seeds, your best bet is to shop with somebody who, you know, you can at least communicate with.
I agree.
How are these seeds going to, you know, if you have any questions about how they're grown, if you have any, you know, issues throughout the grow. Seeds are living things. Seeds are something that, you know, most people don't realize that from the moment of inception, it's essentially alive. And that doesn't always mean that by the time it gets to you, maybe years down the road from when it was created, from any seed maker,
that's when it's the
that doesn't necessarily mean it's still going to be alive. So, you know, like, being able to communicate with whoever you're buying seeds from is a really big thing in making your first seed purchase, especially because inevitably problems are going to happen. It's going to happen. It's not an if, it's a when. And being able at that point to communicate with whoever it is you got the seeds from, can they give you an answer as to, hey, man, if none of these popped, none of these germinated, why is that? You know, did I mess something up? Are they old? You know, is it just, there's a million different issues that can come up from the beginning to the end.
It's definitely a bonus if you can contact and communicate with the person or the breeder who made the seeds. Like, again, you know, I can only speak on experience. You know, I've been communicating with Terp for about 5-6 years now, you know, just through DMs. And that's one thing I can definitely pride is being able to communicate with the breeder. If you hit me and you have questions about my seeds, I have answers for you. You can find my lineage on Seed Finder, and it's documented. If you want to see for yourself, you know, grab a pack and grow them, you know. But, you know, it's always a plus if you can communicate with the breeder and the breeder doesn't feel like he's here and you're there and you're a consumer and we're just people trying to make genetics at the end of the day.
So
like,
let me ask you a question. I keep hearing all these people talking about flavors.
Mm-hmm.
I thought weed just tasted like weed. What do they mean? What there's all these exotic different flavors? Like,
there are
terp.
Different flavors.
Like most people who are just buying their first pack of seeds do not know about terpenes. They do not know about flavors. They do not know that every single plant is going to have its own unique fingerprint of flavor.
Correct.
And that's kind of a unique thing to say, but the more you grow, the more you start to understand that the one thing that we all, at the end of the day, end up chasing with a seed is flavor, right?
Definitely. You definitely want to enjoy your smoke, and you definitely want weed to taste good, you know. When it comes to flavors, by me growing and being able to grow so much now, I've been able to experience different terpenes. Like, when I was just, you know, copping from the local guy down the street, you know, it was maybe 3 different flavors. You know, I won't bring it up.
If you were lucky sometimes.
Right. If you were lucky. If you knew the guy, you know. But being able to grow my own and actually look for stuff, I found something that, in my opinion, tastes like French onion and burgers. Like, in my opinion, like, it's funky. It's just, and it was, so I'll tell you what it was. It was a chim clone gifted to me by a friend. And I've never had chim before. This was my first experience with chim D. And I grew it out, and that's what it came out. So I kept it around. Like, that's weird. That's a different terpene. What the fuck is that?
Those are the poopenes.
Thanks. I want it to taste like
The
mango diesel
poopings
strap.
encompass all of the negative smells and odors, and it smells like diarrhea and baby poo and onions and
Yeah,
terrible spoiled food. Like, those are the poopings.
bro. And again, like I said, when I was just copping from the local guy down the street, I only knew 3 flavors. So I
Right.
thought that's what great cannabis tasted
Let's
like,
be
right?
honest,
That's it.
man. At that point, when you're buying it from a homie, a lot of times, you're lucky if it tastes like anything. You're lucky if it doesn't just taste like something in a wood or something in a joint. Like,
Right.
you know, you're lucky if you actually get something that's still got a little bit of flavor on it by the
Yeah.
time it gets to you at that point, you know?
For sure. So again, that's why I say, if you know your local laws, and if you're able to cultivate, man, go find those terps that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Like my caramel grape donuts. I hate to do it, but I got to give a shout out to my caramel grape donuts, man. It's a different terpene that I enjoy. It's grape kerosene. Like, you know it
That's
when you
awesome.
smell it. Like, wow,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
So hunt
I got
for,
a pineapple.
bro, again.
I got a pineapple tart I worked with for a while. That's like a real heavy grape menthol, like you said, almost kerosene mothball type of, like,
Yeah.
really petrol, but not like petrol, right? That, like, diesel fuely thing, but it's more almost like, the kerosene kind of industrial solvent type of flavor. But yeah, that's the whole difference, man. And that's what you realize after you've grown your first few plants. There's this beautiful world of flavors out there, and different aromas and different scents and different effects. And that's what, at the end of the day, why you do it more than once, right? I mean, you're out there to try and find something that's different, that's unique. And at the end of the day, we have more access now than we've ever had in the history of the world to genetics and to seeds, you know?
Pheno hunting, do you flower, seed, plant, or clone? In my opinion, from everything I read, I feel like when you pheno hunting, you gotta pop seeds. From those seeds, you can pick a cultivar that you like and start cloning it, because it meets every criteria that you're looking for when you're starting to grow. So yeah, I feel like you start from seed, and then you find what you're looking for and make life easier with cloning.
There's
In my
definitely
opinion.
a benefit. There's definitely a benefit to flowering and pollinating a seed plant versus a clone. And having done so many at this point, that's something you really start to notice, is the vigor from plant to plant.
Mm-hmm.
When you're pollinating something that came originally from a seed versus, say, a 30-year-old clone that's been passed around the Bay Area for 25 years and has now been through 1,800 different hands and a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. So, like, you really get a lot more vigor from a seed plant 100% of the time. And I would prefer to pollinate seed plants. Now, you always need to clone them. You need to test them out, yada, 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 and do other things. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to make more, I almost always use the original cloned plant for the first batch of seeds.
Correct.
I mean, the first seed plant, the first plant that I take the first cut off of. That's
You know what?
came from a seed, yeah.
Yep. And again, I'm looking forward to going through some of your gear, man, and actually diving deep into it again, man, like, and see what's there. That's exciting for me.
The one thing at this point, like, there's tons of odd strains that I've done that, like, I see pop up, and people have tons of, amazing time growing out, and it's awesome. But at this point, man, I have enough that, like, if you tell me I'm into gassy strains, I got something for you. If you tell me I'm into heavy cushes, we're brothers. We're friends. So I always got something for you. If you're into citrus and you're just like, my wife loves citrus and I love citrus and we're just citrus themes, I got something for you. If you're into just exotic and you just want to have something that's different and a flavor that's complex, and it's more complex than whatever your friend or your neighbor or their cousin or their uncle has growing, I got something for you. That's exactly what I got for you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Nice.
and that's the thing about any of those sorbet strains, the Nagchampa, any of that sort of stuff. Like, we've gotten way off of the fucking topic of you know, of newbie discussions, and we're deep in the heart of terpene territory. But all those sorbet strains, man, when you start getting into each individual plant has its own complex flavor, and you can run 4 from the same pack, and every one feels like a different, unique flavor profile. That's what people want right now. So one of the discussions that we just had on my page that we've been going over for the last week, you know, is genetics and inbreeding and, you know, and seeds and flavor profiles. And if you're looking for unique, most of the people that hit me up want 4 or 5 keepers out of every pack. They want to have the problem of every plant is so healthy and so terpy that I want to keep every one of them.
For sure. For sure. Where would you recommend starting to chase lemon G traits? But yeah, man. So let's talk about flowering. Let's talk about conditions.
Let's talk about lemon G. You just said it, right? Lemon G.
Yeah.
Lemon G. Lemon G.
Let's talk about it.
Ugliest. It is the ugliest plant I've ever seen in my life that people cloned and passed around.
Yeah. Lemon G.
It's like dusty outdoor. If it's grown in the most perfect environment,
it don't matter.
The buds just have this ugly, wonky look to them. They're not really what most people consider today, you know, commercially viable bud structure. But man, it makes some of the best extracts and oils that I could possibly imagine. So if you're looking for something along those lines, I'm going with something Mechagodzilla like Ghidorah, the Astro Monster. There's a couple in that line that are real heavy citrus, but they're honestly a little bit better than Lemon G today. Like Lemon G was really hot in like 2016. We were going crazy off. It was everywhere in Denver, Colorado. And now I don't see it as much anymore.
I apologize for being ignorant, but where's Lemon G from? The only Lemon G I know is who's Lemon G from?
I'm not sure who originally bred it. If I'm not mistaken, it's originally from the Pacific Northwest, maybe. Okay. Like Oregon, Washington, somewhere up that way. I may be wrong about that, but I want to say Oregon, Washington, somewhere up around that area. It's an heirloom cut. It's an heirloom cut that's gone around and been traded for years. It's had kind of resurgences, but it's not commercially viable. It's not a strain that when you grow a room of it, people walk in and go, "Oh my God, that's the one I want." It's just almost always kind of ratty looking. The buds never look good. Once you trim it up, it just looks real average. It doesn't have huge trikes. Yeah. It's not a hash plant traditionally, and that's why it tends to make better BHO and solvent extracts than, you know.
Everyone's saying Ohio. Everyone in the chat said Ohio.
100%. That's it. Yeah. I'm so sorry. You're absolutely right. Ohio. That's it. Yep. Yeah. I take that back. I take back everything I said in the Pac Northwest. Y'all don't get no flowers. That one goes to Ohio. Absolutely right.
It grows all bushy. Yeah. Man, lemon pledge.
It's ugly. Nice. It's ugly, but the profile, once you extract it, even smoking it, it's nice. But I don't think smoking cured flower tastes quite like the live bush extract. Like when you've had the live, like absolute live BHO with that, it's some of the most amazing mouth-coating citrus Christmas wreath.
I've never, in my opinion, I've never ever smoked bud that had a better profile than extract. I just haven't.
Yeah, that's kind of, I'm going to be honest with you, that's tough. But here's the difference. With that one, the profile was a little bit different. So, like, when it was cured bud, it was more of, like, piney Christmas wreath kind of thing. But when you extracted it, like, fresh, it was almost more, like, completely citrus.
Nice.
Yeah, it is really lemony. It is really lemony citrus heavy.
Let me see. I can't think of a lemony strain. Well, I'm not gonna lie. The super lemon haze that I had the other day was pretty lemony, but man, if I've never tasted anything that tastes like Pledge. That sounds lemony, man.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
It's awesome. And like I said, it makes amazing extracts. But
nice.
it's not commercially viable. So anybody that keeps it in a garden, it's usually a passion project, or it's something where they just love absolutely being able to make it into extracts. Because you won't run a room of flour more than once of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not commercially viable. These days, people either want big buds or they want tons of resin. That's pretty much the only thing anybody,
Right.
or they're on the hunt like me or you, and they're like, I want exotic, I want unique, I want something that's different. I want to show up to a sesh and everybody be like, what's that guy got? I want that.
I wanna be like, I can't put my finger on it. That's the terp I'm looking for now. I can't really tell you. You got to try it. Like, I can't tell you. Like, that's the one I want.
Yeah, and that's where I got to, because I think that's also comes from, like, once you hit a certain point as a smoker, right? You've had all the basics. You've had some OG. You've had some citrus. You've had most of the basics.
Yeah.
So then you go, I really need something that's going to be different. I need something that when I show up with it, it's going to be unique. Now, back when I first got into seeds in the early 2000s, late 90s, like seed collecting, seed popping in general, your options were so limited in what you could even get your hands on as far as seeds. And now it's this explosion of like, every seed that is made has some value, right? And I'll be the first to tell you, man, if you want to make seeds, make some seeds. Take your two favorite strains, cross them together, make some seeds, make sure those strains make it into the next generation of plants.
Right.
You know,
if you find something, keep it around. I agree.
Yeah. If you're looking for hot dumpster,
right.
Man, here's what's so funny, right? This is the thing I love about weed.
Because think about it. There's so many different ways a hot dumpster can go smell, bro. Like, even just depending on what type of dumpster it is or where it came from. Oh, man, that's nice. I'm looking for a hot dumpster.
Are you looking for the dumpster or are you looking for the trash truck? Now, think you're following around the trash truck. The little juice is dripping out because they just picked up somebody's trash. And you got this, like, heavy. You don't want that.
Bro,
nah, you don't want that.
Trash cans and trash bins smell the same. I don't want to. If I smelt one in New York, I smelt one in Florida. Like, that shit smell the same. I want trash. I want dumpsters. That's all different, man. I don't know. That shit weird as hell.
The one that blows me away these days is like you kind of said the chem, but like more of like the GMO kind of like spoiled onions, burnt curry, Thai food that's been sitting out for like 3 days.
Oh no!
Just funk.
Oh, I don't even know. That is atrocious.
Yeah, that's so funny. We went from noob tips into terps. It all ends up dead ending into terps at the end of the day, right? Like
the day, that's where you want to get to. You're not growing it. You're not growing it to not enjoy it. You know.
Yeah. And that's what's funny. Here's what's awesome is that like at a certain point, a lot of those flavors that we're discussing, and in case you just picked this up on podcasts and you're like, why did they just spend 10 minutes just saying rancid sounding things? This is the new world of cannabis. It's like everybody loves the nastiest smelling weed. And it really has become kind of like a shooting gallery of like, how close can I get to the nastiest smelling thing that's as offensive as possible? And that's a blowing up industry within the seed community. Is like, just how trashy can I make it? How spoiled does it smell? How rancid, skunk, whatever, poop, baby diarrhea, like whatever horrible smelling thing. That's what I want. And that's a whole group of people. And shout out to all the pooping chasers. You guys are all kings, every one of you. Find that nasty shit and let me know when you find it, man. Like, whatever's out there. If it smells and it makes your grandmother vomit when you bring it around her oxygen machine, that's the shit we want. Like, just taking your grandma's oxygen machine and if she starts, like, gagging, hit me up with them seeds. That's pretty much what we're looking for. We're looking for that spoiled diaper near the Thai food restaurant.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, did you know me, man? I'm a fiend for banana, but like I like to take that heavy banana and work it into like other stuff. So like somebody mentioned the banana Ghidorah mints in the comments a minute ago,
Yeah.
which once again, we still got 5 minutes. www.terpene.com, terpi3nd.com. Go get some seeds, man. All we have, any flavor we discussed here, pretty much openly, you can find or across of some sort. And if you need a flavor recommendation or profile, hit me up. At the Real Mac Blunts, hit my man up and get some of them caramel donuts. It's just the hot right now. Everybody's telling me I have to have it.
Get
My
'em.
significant other's telling me I got to have it. She's messaging me caramel donuts, caramel donuts. I'm like, listen, man, I'll get the caramel donuts. Just calm down.
Hey, man,
Calm
caramel
down.
grape donuts, man. Come get it, man.
But yeah, so man, a huge thanks to just evolved, just started, to be honest, it started with us, with our, and I think we got to a point where you could probably pick a tip up here, get a grow started. If you ever need a tip, man, we're kind of community guys, both of us. If you hit either one of us up and you're like, hey, man, I got a question, I got a grow question, I got a, can you give me a tip? Can you give me a flavor profile? What are you guys talking about, any of these flavors? Feel free to hit one of us up, man. We're easy to find
For
guys,
sure. Hey, and if I don't know the answer, guys,
answer a
I'll go
question.
research it for you, and I'll find the answer and get back to you. So
Yeah.
definitely hit us up if you got any grow questions.
But yeah, man, and once again, thanks, Mac. I gotta appreciate it, man. January is not usually my month. This is one where we're just I'm getting through these, and we're gonna get to warmer weather, and everybody's gonna be on a better tip in 2023. Yeah, we still got like 4 more minutes we can kill.